Good morning. Welcome to today's webinar. Today we have Star Water Group, an exciting green tech, climate tech company. Thanks very much for your time today and for joining our webinar. Now today, first of all, some housekeeping. We'll be about 1 hour, hopefully shorter, so won't take up too much of your time. And this whole event is being recorded. So if you miss anything, want to watch it again, you can go back and play it again to your heart's content. So that's all being done. Now, again, today on the line we have the CEO of Star Water Group, Mr. Chris Rochfort, and we also have the Technical Director, Mr. Eric Love, on the line today. I'm your host, Anthony Benson from Republic PR. Now, first, just a quick poll. Great to see a few on the lines already, and quick poll to see, I guess, your interest in Star Water as a clean tech, green tech water management company. And I'll just get the poll underway. So here we go. So the poll says, I'm interested in Star Water because I like green tech, you like climate tech, you're a general ESG investor, or other reasons. So I'd just like to maybe put in your response as to how you like, I guess, your interest in Star Water today and what got you into the company. So yeah, let us know what the reason is. But obviously we have different investors for different reasons, and I guess we tick a few of those boxes. But by all means, please give us your thoughts. And I'll just leave that running for a couple of seconds while we get a few more responses. And thank you again for your time today. So we've had a few responses already. Maybe just a couple more seconds to run the poll. So why are you interested in Star Water? Is it green tech, climate tech, or ESG? And we've had quite a few votes in already. So it seems like it's ESG is winning. I'll just close the poll off right now. Okay. And I'll show you the results. So today we have a clear winner. It's ESG investors. So thanks ESG investors. Great to have you here and love to have you on board and supporting Star Water. Thank you very much for your support. Now, without further ado, I'd like to hand over pretty quickly to the CEO, Chris Rochfort. In case you don't know Chris is a qualified horticulturalist based in Sydney, been involved in the water, clean tech, green tech industry for about, 30 odd years. Research Director Eric Love, also, again, a very experienced water and clean tech professional. Both have got extensive backgrounds in the industry. Both have co-founded CORE, industry non-profit, which is the Centre for Organic Research and Education. So both are committed to the industry plus their own business. Obviously very busy people. So now handing over to Chris to run his presentation. And Chris, if you'd like to activate your camera and mic. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Anthony, and welcome everybody. Governments, planners, communities around Australia and around the world are grappling and scrambling to adapt to climate change. And we've seen no better example of that than over the last few years in Australia, where we've seen droughts and fires and water restrictions, as well as more recently, we've seen floods and major floods. In fact, 1 in 500-year events and 1 in 1,000-year events, which are unprecedented. All these things are playing into where Star Water's strengths are and where we're positioning ourselves. So the market drivers are not only water restrictions and droughts, not only urban flooding, but also pollution that goes with that. And everyone's seen the pictures on TV of the dirty water going down the rivers and so on. And a lot of that is not only because of the dirt and the silt that's going down there, but also the pollutants that are going down there. And those pollutants go down there every time it rains, not just when there's floods. We also have, as a result of all of that, degraded infrastructure. And at the moment, the councils around Australia are applying for federal government aid for filling in potholes, which is something that's unprecedented as well. But you also have a lot of damage to infrastructure, and a lot of the aging infrastructure is a problem as well. So our solution, which is advanced biofiltration technology, is superior at water retention. So during flooding events, we can hold more water along roads, along reserves and in other areas to stop a lot of the localised flooding. We protect water assets for communities by removing high pollutant levels very efficiently. We provide reusable water options too, because we can store water with our systems. Because we clean the water to such an efficient extent, we can actually reuse that water now rather than watching going down the rivers and out into the waterways polluted. The other thing is we're a circular economy company. We use recycled materials to produce our products and our technologies, and I'll go into that in more detail along the way. And that reduces the cost of materials because finite resources are increasing in cost. In Sydney alone, where we're based, you can't mine sand anymore. There's no sand available left in Sydney. You've got to get it from a long way away, 200, 300 kilometres away. And because of that, there's extra costs. Plus, because there's more demand than there is supply, the price is going up. Whereas we have an ongoing resource with recycled materials, a renewable resource, and because of that, we are able to stabilise costs for our customers and so on. The other important factor is that everyone recycles around Australia and in our target markets around the world. So because of that, our technology has been set up to be a distributed system option. So in other words, it's decentralised. It's not sending it all back to one place, pumping water to a centralised facility and then pumping the water back again. So we've got energy savings, for instance, but we've also got a distributed system that allows for cities to prosper in a circular economy sense as well. Next slide, please. So recently, as last Friday, the headline news was water competition, food price spikes, and we're seeing that with the latest CPI, consumer price index rises and so on, just as of yesterday. But there's a forecast that there's going to be water competition because there's going to be more demand for water than there is supply. We've seen that because during drought periods, there's water restrictions. We're not allowed to water our gardens or wash our cars or wash down areas or whatever. And that's going to become even stronger. So the competition for water opens up the opportunity for us to provide our supplementary water through our systems once we've filtered that water. And the food price spike is an interesting one as well, because we also work with our systems in agriculture, and we provide technologies into agriculture which can reduce their water needs, reduce their input costs, and that should have downward pressure on food prices indirectly as well. Next slide, please. So where we've positioned ourselves is a lower cost option for planners and governments and communities. Advanced functionality, we can both solve a water crisis problem like water restrictions, or we can also solve a flooding problem, a localised flooding problem in cities and communities around Australia and around the world. But also we offer an increased sustainability option. And you might note from that poll there that most people chose ESG as the number one reason they're interested in our technology, and there's no fluke in that. We build our technology around recycled materials based in local communities around Australia and around our target markets around the world. But we also clean water, so we improve sustainability in communities by cleaning the water and making it more livable. And by providing water back on a low energy or no energy basis, then we're also ticking the box from that regard as well. Next slide, please. So what are the things that from a sustainable development goals and an ESG goals point of view do we tick the box? So everything from number 3 to number 6 to number 9 to number 11 to number 13, 14 and 15, we tick the box from a sustainable development goal perspective. And these goals are being adhered to by governments and communities around the world, and also the financial markets. And that's why ESG is becoming more important with ecological, social and governance perspective. And so we tick 7 of the 17 sustainable development goals in our technology and our business. Next slide, please. So our history. We evolved from a very innovative collaboration between government, research institutes and industry. That was facilitated by CORE. As Anthony mentioned, Eric, Love and myself founded CORE as a response to a need for better use of our recycled materials and finding new markets for that. So we set up CORE, we set up collaborations with government entities. Some of them are listed on down to the left of the page there, and some of the research institutes on the right of the page. And these institutes and governments aren't only in Australia, they're target markets that we operate in around the world as well. However, the focus of this research was all around finding markets for recycled materials, because there was a waste crisis long before it became a media issue a couple of years ago with the banning of some of our materials going into offshore markets. But there was a waste crisis back in the 90s where we were running out of landfill space. So the government upped the ante on recycling. As a result of that, they saw the need to collaborate with us and research institutes to come up with solutions for use of these materials. The main one that we saw was the use of recycled materials in water treatment, water filtration, because it was a community issue already. These materials were being recycled by people, and this gives everyone the opportunity to participate because they put out their recycling every week, and that recycling goes into our filter systems. So we embarked on a long research and development program. We then commercialised into Star Water, and hence what brings us to today. Next slide, please. So what is advanced biofiltration technology? So it's filters that are made from the recycled materials that are put into various applications. We have streetscape applications along roads and gutters, and those roads and gutter systems provide irrigation water back for playing fields and other applications. But our filter material, the core of the technology is really the filter material itself made from the recycled materials. And up on the top right-hand side of that graphic there, or that slide, there's a number of our filters, if you like, that we manufacture. But besides that, we also have developed a range of devices in which the filters go into that are being implemented in around Australia and around the world, all from permeable weirs to filter bales for construction site, reactive filter units that go into industrial and other applications, rain gardens, which are a big one that are now being installed everywhere. Every council nearly is adopting rain garden technology as their go-to solution for runoff, if you like, and our filters go in those rain gardens, for instance. And we also have SOC type technology that goes around construction sites and industrial applications. So it's a combination of a product, which is the filter technology, devices, which are those products down on the bottom right hand side, and also systems, which is the streetscape systems we commonly call STAR systems. Next slide, please. Yeah, so, but the other part of the system is the computerization of our technology. And we've done that by combining with the research institutes, again, with industry, with computer tool designers and so on. And we've developed a proprietary design tool that can be localized in city by city around the world. So how that works in essence is a customer, there's a user interface, which is the column number one. The city or the consulting engineer or the developer inputs data from their site that they want to address, from a water quality, a catchment factor that addresses the flooding issue, because if we can know more information about the catchment and how the flows happen, then we can design filters that can accommodate that better. And also the device design objectives. Are they looking at a filter that goes along a streetscape? Are they looking one in a park? Are they looking at rain gardens and so on? And then also the jurisdiction's important, because the geography and the climate and so on varies from city to city. So then on the number 2 column there on the right hand side, Our system enables us to identify the components in each city, the recycled components that is. We do materials characterization on those materials. We do efficacy testing to see how those materials, each one individually, can perform, from everything from treating pollutants to water hydrology and a range of other factors, like whether they can grow plants in a rain garden, for instance. Then we produce reference formulations through the computer system, and those formulations are tested as well. Then the computer system itself formulates a design that is then used for quotation for the customer, whether it's a city or a construction company or a development. We then once that project is underway, we then issue that manufacturing instructions to a manufacturer. The material is manufactured and then delivered for installation to the sites. Now, all that is done because through CORE, we have a network of recyclers and manufacturers and that around Australia and in jurisdictions around the world in which we operate. Next slide, please. So a bit more on the intellectual property, because all those things that we've talked about need to be protected, and we've done that through a series of things from patents, and you can see there that we have patents already granted in Australia, UK and Vietnam. We have Singapore and China pending, and also India pending as well. We also have a range of trademarks and brand names. We also have trade secrets, know-how and networks. Because we've got such a bevy of science, we have a lot of know-how and a lot of trade secrets that are also tied up in our research and development over a period of time. Those patents, by the way, cover about 3.3 of the world's billion of the world's population and their habitats as well. Next slide, please. The technology drivers. So why we've positioned ourselves where we have is because there's economic, environmental and social drivers that have made us position ourselves the way we have with the technology. On one hand, we have economic drivers such as massive housing development and industrial development, and you only have to look at Western Sydney as an example of that, where there's 5 cities being built and an airport at the moment and a whole lot of other infrastructure going around that. You have in southeast Queensland cities being developed the west of Brisbane, heading out towards Ipswich. You also have an economic driver, as I mentioned earlier, about the depletion of resources, natural resources, and that's why we're substituting those with recycled resources. You also have stormwater levies coming in. Councils are levying their residents to put in more and better stormwater infrastructure, including our technology. You also have a need for lowering the costs of construction and maintenance and replacement. And our technology has been designed to address that by providing a technology that can last longer, doesn't need maintaining as much as sand filters, for instance. And the replacement cycle is a lot longer because our technology is so efficient at removing the pollutants. It takes a lot more pollutants than what a sand filter will take. You also have an economic driver in water protection and security, because if we haven't got water, we haven't got an economy. So there's a lot of studies being done that validates that water is the key thing to being able to have economic development. From an environmental and policy perspective, pollution reduction and human health is a key one around the world. People are getting sick from contaminated water, even during the last floods. We saw people getting diseases as a result of that. So if we can treat that and remove those issues, then we address that one from a policy perspective. Waterways and habitat protection, that is very important because a lot of our water, existing water, comes from the waterways, whether it's dams or reservoirs or rivers, even in outer communities. So protecting those is very important, because as we develop more urbanisation and industrialisation and so on, there's more pollutants going into the waterways. Greening infrastructure is a big policy driver at the moment, and we fit perfectly into a greening infrastructure policy perspective with our technology offering. Climate action, we provide a biodiversity offer because we can increase things like plants that are being put into cities. Even the biology that's in our technology provides a mechanism for better habitat and so on. We also provide a better resilience offering for climate action as well, because we can reduce the issues with, as we said, with water stress and also flooding and other things as well. Heat island effect, for instance, and we offer emissions reduction as well. A key one, as we mentioned, waste recycling. That we're reducing the need for landfill by recycling a lot of the materials, not only organic materials, but turning glass back into sand that are used in our filters, and recycled plastics that are used in our drainage systems and that as well. From a social and regulatory point of view, community pressure is there for climate action and pollution reduction. There's government policies, there's funding support for recycling and recycled content. There's procurement policies that governments are coming out now for buying and preferring products that contain recycled materials, for instance. And there's mandated government regulations in Australia, a lot of developments, and I know there's developers on this webinar. They have to allocate 1% of their development area for stormwater treatment and so on. And so we offer an opportunity to provide technologies into that 1%, but also because our technology is very efficient, we can often shrink the footprint in which they need to allocate that area for water sensitive urban design. In the US, which is one of our key markets, there's retention credits. So if you can retain water and that, you get credits for that. There's also total daily maximum limits on pollutants going into waterways, and they get fined for that. So if this is cities and also factories and everything else, every day they pollute, they get fined. So they have an economic incentive in a way to implement technologies such as ours. The last one there is natural aesthetics. So we're greening the infrastructure. Instead of black box technology for treating stormwater, we're providing solutions that are nature-based solutions. Next slide, please. So our flagship system, as we mentioned, is the STAR system. STAR stands for Stormwater Treatment and Reuse. And this is a graphic of a system that we put in at Manly very early on in our research and development stage that has been in place for 20 years now. And that system is a proof of concept, but also a full installation. And it's lowering the compliance costs and increasing. It gives the ability on development sites to increase their lot yields, because if we run it along a gutter, then they don't need to put a system and allocate 1% of their land as much to putting in treatment systems separate to along the gutter. We can treat, capture and store water. We can top up existing water supply. So even when there's a drought and water restrictions on, there's water available for people to use to water their gardens or wash their cars or whatever. Because these systems are along the roads, they reduce flooding, localised flooding, and they reduce the heat island effect, which is causing a lot of issues as well when we're reaching temperatures of in the 40s and 45 degrees Celsius, for instance. And as we said, it doesn't use any external energy to remove the pollutants. It's made using recycled materials. Even the drainage structure in there is made from recycled plastics. And we can manufacture and supply on a city-by-city basis in those jurisdictions I mentioned earlier. And it's scalable because we can go into other cities as well as we develop. We can increase our footprint to other cities where they have recycled materials and where they have water issues and so on as well. Next slide, please. So our competitive advantages are that we're technically proven through our research program. We have installations that are over 20 years now. We have a computerized treatment design system, and that's very good for scalability too, because we can handle many inquiries in one time and in real time around the world. We have lower operating and maintenance costs because our systems don't need replacing as quickly as sand filters and other filter technology. And we have that offering of circular economy juxtaposition of water treatment and reuse, waste recycling and energy efficiency. Next slide, please. From a scalability point of view, I mentioned that we have access to both and national and an international network through CORE, and that's our supply chain manufacturing and distribution channel. And that's why we've been able to put installations in places such as Canada, China, Singapore, in North America, and all around Australia. And the important thing here is, because we don't need to ship the technology offshore or interstate, we have reduced freight charges, we have no import duties, and there's no lead time issues, which is a big issue at the moment in supply chains around the world because of COVID and so on. We also lower the cost of goods because we're using recycled componentry, and we're aligned with multiple government policies in targeted jurisdictions. Next slide, please. So some of the performance validation, we mentioned about the Manly project there, but just some of the statistics out of that. That system goes for 500 metres along the beachfront to protect the beach and the swimmers that are swimming in that beach. It's collected 19 million litres of water per annum, and annually it also reduces the pollutants that are going into the beach there, things like TP, which is total phosphorus, and TM, which is total nitrogen, by significant amounts when you add them up in a kilogram perspective. We also have a system, a flagship system at Concord that was done pre-Olympics. It goes down 5 streets. It's collected 40 million litres of water, and it also has very high pollutant removal capability. And the asset manager for Canada Bay Council, which is the council there, rates this system as an A-class asset. But more recently, we've done a world first 100% recycled content filter that's gone into Newcastle Council, and the removal rate of pollutants there, we've removed 53% of nutrients. The biodiversity index, which is very important because the biological element of our treatment is very important to removing some of the pollutants, and we had a very good result on the biodiversity index there, which is a new area of testing that we're going into. Next slide, please. Overseas, we've done projects in Singapore with the Singapore government through the Public Utilities Board, and we did a farm project there because they had issues with farm water running off into their water reservoirs. And also we did a rain garden in the urban areas. Not that there's many urban areas in Singapore, housing urban areas that is, but we did a rain garden there, and a lot of people would drive past that not knowing it's actually a treatment system, and they would think it's just a rain garden. And that's what there's a lot of these around Australia now that are actually treating, that we've supplied filter media for. And there's potential for hundreds of thousands of these rain gardens to go in new developments and redevelopments in cities around Australia and in our target markets. And I won't go into the detail on the results there, except when you look over the right-hand column, we reduced flow in those ones by only 3.8%, but we've modified since then to get a lot more reduction in flow as well. We've reduced suspended solids, phosphorus, nitrogen by fairly high percentages, and gross pollutants by 100%, which is the bottles, cans, and so on. Next slide, please. In China, we've worked in Shanghai Botanic Gardens. We use their materials, their recycled materials, and we built a range of our devices and even a rain garden that had a recycled water system underneath it as well. And that went into one of their lake river areas there that they had issues with, that they needed addressing. And once again, we got very good and very high removal rates, and they were very happy with the project that was done there. And that really gives us a launch for other applications in China. We have a director on our board that's got very good connections in China, and we still think we can provide some very good opportunities for China. We actually put in more technology into Shenzhen as well as Shanghai along streets. Next slide, please. So looking at our way forward and what we're forecasting for major sales and that from projects, We already have in Australia, US and China identified, and we've got known projects that we're targeting and we're securing. In Australia, that's about $11.7 million worth. In the US, it's $10.8 million worth. And in China, we've got $1 million worth that was slated for through the Sponge Cities program there. And some of those projects, while the total value of those projects, you can see collectively is about 49 billion in Australia, 137 billion in the US, and 6 billion in China. That's the total project amount. And while our share is what we've forecast there, we believe there's opportunities to expand that once we get into those projects and provide more of our technology and other devices, for instance, into each of those projects, if we have the resources to do that. Next slide, please. Forecast, we've done annualized our forecast out to 5 years. You can see there our revenue growth over the first, second, third, fourth and fifth year. On a lower case scenario is 30 million by the fifth year. On an upper case, if depending on economic circumstances, pandemic circumstances and so on, we believe we can reach up to 50 million by year 5. And we're a net profit before tax of 9 million on that $50 million. Next slide, please. So of those projects, how we can get to that level of growth is through these major projects, breaking them down. For instance, the Sydney Science Park, which we have a formal MOU with, is a $5 billion development over 2 decades. Which is a very green, it's set up as a smart city. They are really supportive of the technology offering that we have. We've been in constant discussions with them. They've got a master plan that's just coming out from the local council. It's been delayed because of COVID, but it's just about finalised. And we expect that to start Q1 2023, that project. We have the White Rock development, which we have a formal letter of intent with the developer there. It's a 300-hectare project over 2 decades, residential and commercial development. And we have multiple revenue streams there from product systems and potentially water sales back to things like car washing facilities and commercial facilities that are there that need water. And we're working with the developer to be able to provide that water back. Another project we've spec'd into is what's called Greening the Pipeline in Victoria, and it's a 27-kilometre pipeline infill over a 10-year period, and Star Water specified into that project, and so we've got future sales of the systems and products, and also potential water sales. But that's the water sales is something that we're working on. We haven't forecast that yet, and we want to do a bit more work on that before we can put some numbers around that. That one's commencing Q3 2000. They've already started the construction works there, so we're expecting to put product into that project very soon. Next slide, please. There's also opportunities in the United States, immediate ones. We're involved in what's called the Safe Clean Water Program in LA County. You can actually Google LA County's website, Public Works website, and you'll see that Star Water is on one of their sites as a best management practice. We're involved in a city there, an initial city, and we've got 3 or 4 more cities that we're in discussions with to put in applications for funding under this 30-year program. There's $300 million a year allocated to this program over a 30-year period. We already have been vetted and validated by the LA County. We now just have to work on each individual project and scope those out. We're also involved in a Water Start platform in Nevada, protecting Lake Mead, Hoover Dam and Lake Tahoe. We were selected into that program by a global expression of interest. Initial projects are with we're looking at with Southern Nevada Water Authority and the City of Henderson. And there's multiple revenue streams there from product systems and potential water sales. We're also accepted into the Water Council, which is in the Great Lakes region of North America. And we were again selected into that through an expression of interest program. We had an initial pilot that was near Lake Michigan, which was very successful, and feedback from that from the asset managers there is very positive. We're targeting there the water utilities and the cities to provide the full range of our technologies. And we expect to be identifying other projects there very soon. Next slide, please. So with our capital raise, we had an initial pre-IPO raise of 260,000, and that's been used on the listing process and the due diligence and everything that we've gone through to this stage. Then we are raising 1.014 million and up to 1.5 million through this raise that we're talking about at the moment. Through the funds, what we plan to do with those funds is we have an allocation going to marketing, and that's including digital and print advertising. We want to upgrade our advertising collateral, and we have third-party sales and marketing people into various jurisdictions that we are funding to get projects happening. We have a reseller and distribution support that we want to provide some funding towards. We're also planning on doing some trade shows and exhibitions that are targeted in some jurisdictions that we're entering, and those are in primarily the US at the moment, and we'll expand that out to some of the other markets over time. Next slide, please. We have salaries, of course, and management personnel, where we've got an allocation out of the listing. Bear in mind, there's also funding coming from sales over this time as well that will also support additional staff and additional funding for some of the operations team and sales team as well. We have a little bit of R&D still to do on the software because we need to localise that in a number of the jurisdictions, and we've made an allocation for that. We also have a working capital need for office leases. We've managed to bring that office lease down because of COVID and the availability of offices. We've more than halved that cost for leasing for office space. We also have board and governance costs. We have insurance allocation, and we have a cash flow payables allocation there in the allocation of funds as well. Next slide, please. Just in the future, we talked about the water recovery and reuse potential. We haven't, as I said, allocated anything in our forecast yet for the water sales. However, to give you an idea of what's coming, if we can put a 50-kilometre system in at a cost of $1 million per kilometre, that can generate 473,000 cubic meters of water every year, and if you project that out over 20 and 30 years, you can see the level of volume of water that can be collected. That's enough to provide 4,325 households, 47 sporting fields, or 4.5 golf courses. The 0.5 of a golf course is a 9-hole one, not an 18-hole one. Next slide, please. So just a bit more detail on our collaborators, customers and partners. We showed some of the research institutes early and some of the government people we're working with, but our customers and partners are very important, and some of these form our supply chain and some of these are customers. The City of Sydney, City of Newcastle, and Spire and so on are our customers. We're also on Launchpad with Landcom and Western Sydney University, and Celestino, which is the developer doing the Sydney Science Park. We're involved with. We also work with some fairly high-profile international companies such as Suez, Veolia and Mondus, and some more local ones with the Altogether group, which are doing water reuse, and we're providing technology to them. Wallara Council, we have a project with them at the moment, installing technology once the weather recedes, we can get onto that site. And White Rock is the big developer in Queensland who, through the LOI we have with them, we have a formal arrangement. Next slide, please. So market recognition, as I mentioned, we're in both the accelerators, the water accelerators in the US. We're the only company, to my knowledge, that has been accepted into both those water accelerators. And that's something to be said for an Australian company to be able to be selected into both those. And they're global expressions of interest. So we're competing against the rest of the world with entry into those. And we've been successful in being selected into both of those, which says a lot for the technology and the business. But we've also been awarded innovation awards in Singapore and in China as well for our technology over a number of years as well. Next slide, please. So our board, we obviously have our two founders, Eric Love and myself, as directors in there. We've also nominated and accepted Tom Mollenkopf as our non-executive chair of the Star Water Group. He is actually the current president of the International Water Association, and he's also a former board member for water utilities as well. And Stephen Yu, who's also a non-executive director, has a lot of experience with listed companies and has also managed property groups for real estate and also funding finance organisations and so on. So he brings that expertise to the table. Next slide, please. Okay, so our initial public offering is our code on the Sydney Stock Exchange, and people might ask why we chose the Sydney Stock Exchange to list. It's because they've got a strong alignment with the UN Sustainable Stock Exchanges program, and they're also aligned with the Frankfurt Stock Exchange, which we expect and hope to get involved with along the way as well. So our initial offering is at 20 cents per share for the amount of capital that we're raising that I spoke about earlier. We believe it's a good investment in the future and an investment into what's coming at us from a climate change perspective and how we respond to that as a community and as government and policy and regulators. We have our prospectus is available on our website in our investor hub if for more information, and there's more information that over time as these projects and as these opportunities unfold, where we believe we can grow very strongly over a period of time. I'd like to hand back now to Anthony for a Q&A session. We're here and we're available to answer any questions that you might have on that.
Thanks, Chris. That was awesome. Thanks very much. And everyone, there's still time to ask questions. So if you'd like to ask a question, please do so now via the control panel, which should be on your screen. We're happy to answer any questions you might have about the raising, about Star Water, etc. So just going back to a couple of questions we've already had submitted by registrants, and one from Boris. Boris asked you, Chris, well, really three things. What are your targets? What are your timelines? And what are your restrictions on your business?
Okay, good question. So our target, answering the first one first, our targets. Well, our target is, this is our initial raise, and we're raising, as I said, the 1.014 million to 1.5 million. We expect to, as we grow, we expect to get more into that ESG finance sector and do other raises. We may even find ourselves raising for multi-million dollar projects that we're wanting to control ourselves and do ourselves. The limitations is funding. If we've got enough resources, the sky's the limit with this, and we've laid a solid platform in targeted jurisdictions around Australia and around the world. With the right resourcing and the right scaling up, we believe we can position ourselves, which is our main objective, to position ourselves as the main go-to technology for stormwater treatment and reuse. And the offering, the closing date, the timing on that is the 10th of June is the closing on this initial offering. So there's still some time, but as soon as it's fully subscribed, we won't be able to take any more any more offers under this offering. Yeah, now's the time.
Thanks, Chris. And everyone, please read those disclaimers on the prospectus, which are on the website, and obviously seek your own professional independent financial advice before investing. But yeah, please look at those disclaimers on the website before looking at the prospectus. Another question, Chris, is about future state of play. How do you see the future state of play for the industry going forward? Because you've had a lot of experience, so how's it going to change?
Yeah, well, we're really in the early stages of resilience, climate action, and responses to that from a city by city technology point of view and everything else. Universities around the world are scrambling, trying to come up with adaptation technologies, whereas we've been at it for 20 years with this technology. So we've refined it. We did a lot of market forecasting. My colleague Eric Love is a market researcher by trade as well. So we were seeing this 20 years ago, what we're actually seeing now. So we've had the time to be able to position ourselves early to capitalise on that and to reap the benefits of that. And the timing, because of the severity of the incidences we've had around Australia, planners are really having to really think about how they design their cities and their redevelopments. Look at Lismore in northern New South Wales, and Grattan, I think was called in Queensland a few years ago. They've had to reposition the town because they're trying to keep it out of floods and harm's way. So if we can look at from a technological point of view and bring in technologies that can actually control these things, whether it's drought or provide water back from a resilience point of view or flooding, then we've got an opportunity to corner the market on a response that's a lower cost than conventional, and we can respond to the policy and regulatory acceleration that's going on now to really seeing what's happened here. And it's not only in Australia. South Africa had 400 something deaths from it, which is unheard of in South Africa, flooding, and we've seen it all over the world. We've seen the pictures, we've seen the stories, and it takes a lot of time for government and policy to catch up to those responses, and they just can't change things overnight. But industry and through what we've done through our core research organisation and through Star Water, we've been able to adapt very quickly and refine our technology to be very functional, as we said up front. We can be versatile to be able to address whatever the situation is that's put to us. And the other one is a waste crisis. I mean, the more urbanisation that goes on, the more waste there's generated. What you do with that, there's less landfill opportunities. So the governments are really driving that message. You've seen the ads on television from the federal government on how they're responding to waste and recycling and that as well recently. So all those things play into our hands, if you like, and why we've selected certain markets offshore as well as around Australia is because we have very strong alignment with the policy and regulatory settings and the future settings. So I hope that answers that question well enough anyway.
Thanks, Chris. Yep, great response. Now, a few questions on the IPO, on the raising. One around salaries of management. Just a quick response on that question, if you can, Chris.
Yeah. Okay. So as you're aware, Eric and I have we've built the industry association of recycling through CORE. Then we've commercialised it into Star Water. There's an obligation from us to our board to put all our energies into Star Water and bring on other people into CORE to do that work. Because of that, we're really going to be strongly involved, and we really want to see this through. So we have a very strong management role, hands-on management role, not just a executive director role, but a hands-on role day to day, day in, day out, even overnight on some of our offshore markets. So it's a bit it's not easy to bring new people on and train them to the point that we've got. So we brought on other directors to help us. We're bringing on other staff to be able to train up. We're already training some up now as we speak, to be able to bring them on more full-time over time and more into the fold on what Eric and I do. But we're also not relying on just that allocation from the raising. We brought that down because we also have the opportunity through sales and revenue, which we've forecast, but we've also got repeat customers already. We've got other revenue streams that we know are coming. So there's a bit of surety around that, but it's a bit hard for us to just recruit people to take over exactly what we've built and the vision that we've got for the future. We definitely do want to hand the reins over time, but initially we want a seamless transition to that, not just a sudden handover, if you like, and maybe there's some missteps with that.
Okay, thanks, Chris. I appreciate we're running out of time, but any more questions, please send them in. Another question about milestones, Chris. What are the near-term milestones towards getting that revenue for the company?
It all revolves around the projects and the timing of the projects, the work that the cities are doing, and COVID in a way has been a problem and an opportunity to us, because from a problem point of view, it's put on hold a lot of the works that we had already existing that we would have been doing if there was no COVID. In the US, we had $500,000 US worth of projects already slated. In Australia, we had projects with cities around Australia. A lot of these major projects have had their master plans held up in council for a year, 18 months. And that's because they've had a lack of staff as well to be able to approve that and so on. So, but where that turns into an opportunity is because those master plans and those opportunities are starting to come to the fore, and so the timing on those is getting nearer and nearer and closer, because the one in Queensland's had their master plan approved already, and as I mentioned with the Sydney Science Park, it's at the latter stages of approval. So so very soon now we're going to be seeing those projects realise. And so from a milestone point of view, we're projecting about 1.5 million in revenue for the first year once we list. We believe that's achievable because we're also bringing people on to harness extra sales too, not only our known projects and other ones that we're working on that we really don't want to make a statement on yet until they're much more over the line because they're still in their infancy stage and an embryonic stage, but we believe they'll fall in behind the project sales funnel that we've got already.
Thanks, Chris. Questions come in about licensing technology. Would you consider licensing your technology, I guess, to generate more revenue?
That's the license model, and we've looked at that in some jurisdictions. That is an option for some markets that we haven't got a foothold in at the moment. We're looking at all sorts of models like licensing and also agency and distribution, particularly for the European market at the moment. There's some strong interest there. And it might come down to being a device dependent, for instance. It might be licensing for a particular sector like the industrial sector, and it might be just the devices alone. We'd be a bit reluctant to license the STAR system out, but however, you know, as we grow and as we get more notoriety for what we're doing and so on, anything's possible, but it's not something on the agenda with us at the moment. We want to build the company from the inside, if you like. But as I said, it may be sector specific and product specific that we do licensing and off-the-shelf items and things like that. We may look at that. We believe if we build it stronger first, then the licensing opportunity, the asking price for that license is a lot higher than what it would be now, and that because a license, we would get an independent valuation on what the license is worth, for instance, and at the moment that wouldn't be as big as what it would be in once we've got a foothold into a market, for instance.
Yep, thanks, Chris. Good response. Now, question around the IPO on the SSX. Just a quick comment on why you're going public and the benefits of the, I know you already mentioned this, but the benefits of the SSX.
Yeah, well, the reason we've gone public is the venture capital market for us hasn't been good because we've market forecast for 20 years and we're out in front and before a lot of the obvious has already hit the market. It's very hard for people up to now, venture capitalists and so on, angel investors, for instance. It's been very hard for them because they've got an exit strategy early. They want to put their money in and get their money out early. And while we believe we've got strong growth coming now, and we've been developing this for listing for the last year as well, so it hasn't just happened overnight. But we believe there's a number of factors why the public offering is important. There's an opportunity for mums and dads to participate. And keep in mind, mums and dads and everybody, even angel investors and everybody, are putting their wheelie bins out every week. So if there's an ability for the general public to realise that they're actually part of the solution by putting their recycling out, and some of those see that also as an opportunity, a business opportunity, then they might say, well, I like this so much, I want to invest in the company. And that gives us a scalability a lot quicker than if we went pitching for more capital non-listed, if you like. We also believe that the connection with the change in the financial markets in the last year, we've seen it, and that came up in your poll then again, as I said, about ESG. The UN is driving the finance markets towards preferring green stocks. Okay, so because of that driver, that's going to push our share price up over time. So we believe that if we're well positioned there and have a business that's really growing, really hitting the mark from an ESG point of view, we've got the financial regulators driving the market to that, and you can see it. Anyone could go on and Google UN Sustainable Stock Exchanges program, and you'll see it there. They're making people invest up to 10% of their investments into green stocks. So that's going to drive demand, and I think that'll drive the share price. And I think, and that's already happening. So we want to be part of that. And because we have a strong interest from Europe for our technology, having involvement in potentially in the future in the Frankfurt Stock Exchange will also drive our shares and our share price and our ability to raise more capital that way. I hope that answers that question well enough.
Yep, thanks, Chris. We're nearly out of time, so maybe one last question for Eric, since we've missed Eric today. Eric, quick response. I'm afraid I only got just 1 minute, but just 1 minute left. But if you can give a quick response on stormwater, what's the issue with stormwater, and how are you guys actually going to help combat climate change in your business? So stormwater and climate change.
Stormwater is probably misunderstood. A lot of people think it's clean because it, comes out of the sky, and when it's in the sky, it is. But when it lands on impermeable surfaces, those surfaces are polluted. And the recent floods have highlighted, the problems that we have with impermeable surfaces because it's just got nowhere to go, and the stormwater systems were, overtaxed and caused that devastation that we did see. So look, our technology can deal with that in terms of pollutant removal. Also hydrology, we've done a lot of technical work on being able to manipulate that hydrology so that we can retain water. The vegetation, biodiversity is a big factor in a climate action, and we also have those environmental virtues like using recycled materials. From a stormwater management, and let's face it, floods are stormwater. All the water we get is stormwater. What we need is more infiltration, and our technology lends itself to improving the infiltration of a city and through the whole catchment. So if we can increase the amount of infiltration in a catchment, we can certainly lower the impacts. Perhaps not of the biblical proportions that we've just had, but most storms aren't that big. But we certainly could have made a difference, and every metre counts in that situation. And yeah, some of those events in some of those towns may have been able to be less devastating with the increase in infiltration and Star Water's infiltration technology.
Great, thanks, Eric. Great response. And I'm sorry, everyone, we're now out of time. Don't want to keep you from your lunch break too much. So thank you again for your time today, for being online. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Eric. Great to have you on the online today.
Thank
Everyone,
you. Thanks everybody for attending.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Please go to the website. You can check our homepage. You can go to Investor Hub, get more information on the prospectus. Please read the disclaimer. Please have a look at that in your own time. Seek professional independent advice. And thanks again for your time today. Any more questions, please email us via the website. And thank you again for your time. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony.
Bye.